Welcome to episode 91 of the Podunk Polymath Podcast. This week I have somebody with me that I've been friends on Facebook for pretty good while. I can't remember how long. It's been a while though. I do want to issue a kind of a content warning for this one because we will be talking about sexual abuse, rape, child abuse, stuff like that. So just be aware of that beforehand. Um, everybody, welcome Ree with me. Is it Ree or Rye?
It's Ree.
Ree.
Yep.
And why don't you tell everybody just a little brief thing about yourself?
I'm Ree. I live in Texas. You guys probably know me from podcast groups. Um, I do a lot of sex education and help younger generation not just have the abstinence only education that they have from school. Um, and I do freelance programming as my job, and I am married, and um, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, freelance programming sounds pretty fancy. So you're one of them smart tech people, right?
Yeah, I guess. It's more repetition than anything. Doesn't take much intelligence once you got it down.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, Ree, I wanted to, although admittedly it was kind of last minute, but I had wanted to have you on anyway. But um, as I said in the intro, it's going to be kind of it's not going to be a pretty topic, I guess you could say. It's going to be kind of hard. So, as I told you before, anything that you're willing to talk about, go ahead. And then, I don't want to, obviously, there's something you don't want to talk about or answer, please don't. Just
Okay.
whatever you're comfortable with. So, I guess I'll just let you go ahead and kind of start things off what we're talking about.
As we know from all of the stories that hit the news, most churches have a problem with abusing children, both sexually and physically. Um, and it's largely covered up or ignored by larger society in protection of the church. Um, the Vatican got rid of something like 848 priests as a result of the credible abuse accusations against minors. But there's many more that the church covers up, and it's not any different in the Southern Baptist churches of the South. Southern Baptist churches of the South are more what I grew up with, although the church that I grew up in was called Independent Christian by my mother, at least. And what they were was even further to the right of Southern Baptist. If you think WBC, West Barrow Baptist Church, it's kind of like that, except they don't care about being public about it. Um, Gays are the worst thing on the earth. Um, being part of being any color other than white is not acceptable. Um, it's very draconian in their beliefs, and if you go outside of that at all, you are pretty much a loner and not really accepted by them.
So this sounds rather cult-like, actually.
Yes, it's pretty cult like.
So you were in this church. I assume you were born into it, I guess, more or less.
Yes, I was born into it. My mom went to college for ministry, and she believed that women were not to speak in front of men. And so she got her children's ministry thing, and then she went on to be a school teacher. Um, And two of my uncles are preachers in this religion, and yeah.
All right. So, can you tell us, and as like I said, as much or as little as you want to tell about what happened to you in this church?
My mom married a man when I was 3 years old, and moved us to Louisiana, and he was a very uh, abusive man. He um, he raped me and was having an ancestral raping relationship with his 16-year-old daughter. Um, and the entire community knew about it. But whenever he raped me, mom took me to the cops, and they sent us home and said that he was an upstanding man and that they weren't going to do anything about it. Um, so whenever we got back home, he decided that he was going to beat the crap out of me, which he did pretty much every Sunday. Every Sunday, he would line us up and beat the crap out of us, and with switches and stuff. And that finally was the last straw with my mom, and she fled him not long after that.
So, how long did this abuse go on?
About a year. So she got married in July, and about the October of the next year, right before my birthday, is whenever we left.
Mm-hmm.
So from 3 to 4.
Oh, Lord. Okay. So, I mean, how it's kind of a, I guess it impacted you. Like, I guess you have like PTSD from it and stuff like that.
I do have PTSD, not only from that, but it was well known in the church that women's body was property, and so I was sexually abused again by uh, the men that my mom put into my life, and it was part of the culture of the church that we were to please men with our bodies no matter what, but we weren't supposed to give them sex because we are the keeper of our purity and their purity.
So, it's your responsibility to maintain your own purity,
Right,
right? And if something happened, it's your fault. I'm
right.
sure. Yeah. And so, I guess that's what. How you did you feel like it was your fault?
For many, many years, I did feel like it was my fault, especially the later abuses that whenever I was 19, 18, 18, 19, the there was this my grandmother's boyfriend decided that he was going to sexually assault me, and my mother told me to keep my mouth shut and take it because that's what a good Christian woman does.
Jesus fucking Christ. Okay. So, hmm. So I read an article and you've read a couple other ones about this sort of thing, and it seems to me that this is, of course, I don't think anybody really thought it was unusual anyway, but I guess I didn't realize how pervasive it was and how little reported it is, mostly because Catholic Church, as we know, has kind of a centralized, you know, group. Is they have a leadership. Protestant churches are a little different, or at least the independent ones. They really don't have a centralized structure, so it's kind of hard to kind of get numbers on that. After reading some of that stuff, what kind of conclusions did you come to regarding that?
Um, that it's a systematic abuse issue, and it's not just in the Catholic Church. We hear it so much in the Catholic Church, but thank goodness they did some research on it in the Southern Baptist Church, and the Southern Baptist Church is just as bad or worse as the Catholic Church. Um, they deny it and they cover it up and they allow it to happen. the Christian nonprofits receive about 260 claims of sexual abuse against a minor each year. And that, as we know, rape is massively underreported. So that's probably around 25% of the actual cases. And they do nothing to change it, and they do nothing to change the people that are in power that are doing it.
Yeah. When I've, like I said, read that article, and apparently there is some move to try to alleviate that somewhat. There seems to be a group that they've tried to establish now.
Um, I've heard many cases where they are trying to remove them from power, but also there's just as many cases of children being told to apologize for allowing it to happen. There was a case not very long ago that made public um, media that one of the churches made a small child apologize to her rapist due to her abuser cheating on his wife.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm trying to find it so I can give you more details about it.
That
Um,
it just sounds so fucking bizarre.
um,
I
yeah, I
mean,
mean that's kind of one of the things that it's give me one second. I am just trying to find that article. Um, yeah, a Baptist church told girl to apologize for being raped, and I will send you this link so you can link it if you have a post about it or whatever.
okay.
Um, and she was told she would go up for church discipline if she did not apologize before the congregation.
And how old was she?
Um,
Does it say?
no, I don't believe it does say,
Okay,
but
just
in the videos and stuff, I believe it. She was like something like 11.
so. A child. This is what a child is being told to apologize for a man that has raped her.
A 15. She was 15 years old.
Oh.
And he raped and impregnated her, and he made her. They made her apologize in front of the church.
Oh boy, yeah. I've over the years I've kind of heard stories like this every now and again, and it's kind of the same story. A girl or is raped, um, and she is made to feel like it's her fault, and she somehow brought it on by being desirable or some shit like that. Of course, that's always been what you wear, the way you look, it's your fault or whatever. And she's forced to apologize, like you just said, because men are just they're slaves to their desires, and if they did it, it's because they were provoked or something.
Yep.
That's
And whenever you are in a program that allows you to never be questioned because you have divine power, it makes it where they can't even say anything about it. And so many of these cases don't even go to the parents, because what are the parents going to say about it whenever they're being told that this person determines if you go to hell or if you go to heaven?
right, right. How are things now? I mean, that's a big question. With
Sorry,
your
you're
mom,
breaking up.
what are you still in contact with your mother about this?
Um, my mother sadly had many strokes, and I I still take care of her, but I'm very distant from her, because I think that she had a lot of doing in allowing these things to happen.
And she apologize, or is it just kind of something that?
No, she thinks it's justified for men to do these things.
Oh, so she's still part of the that mindset then.
Yes. And she has pretty much ostracized me from the family because of my lifestyle. Um, I am atheist, I am queer, and I am poly, and she doesn't like any of those things. So, pretty much, other than me taking care of her, she likes to tell me that she's sorry that I'm going to hell and that kind of stuff.
What about the rest of your family? Do they feel the same way as she does?
Um, So the ones that were even slightly okay with that were not okay with me being married to an Arab. So basically, my entire family, other than my grandmother, has completely disowned me.
Oh yeah, you are. Yeah, you're. So you checked off all the boxes, right? So
I did.
you're a heathen, for one. That's probably the worst. Everything else, I mean, I can tell you that. No, I'm in the South too, and shit, they have a conniption every time you mention you're an atheist.
Yeah.
And of course, you dare own your sexuality by being queer, and then married to an Arab. I don't know what the fuck you're thinking, Ree.
Right?
So,
The last time I saw my mother, she said that she was disappointed in that I was not the little lady she raised me to be.
oh, you mean the little fucking, yeah, slave to men who does whatever they tell you to do, and they can treat you like shit, I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
Be a good member of the patriarchy, whatever. Well, how's this affecting you now? I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's still something that bothers you quite a bit.
Um, Pretty much what bothers me now is their closed off mindset that makes it impossible to be part of the family. I'm considered worse than other family members that have done much worse things. Um, and that's very kitty cat,
Yeah, there's a kitty.
and that's very distracting to me. And I don't like it whenever they treat me like I'm this foreign object that they, especially with how much I do for them all the time.
Yeah, that's what blows my mind because you help your mom, right? You help take care of
Yeah.
her,
Hmm.
and apparently you help other people in your family. Is that right?
Yeah, I do a lot to try and maintain health in my family because my mother um, isn't competent at being an adult.
Go figure. Although to be fair, I mean I don't want to. Religious cults will usually, especially women, if they're trained to be property, then they're not really. They depend so much on men. I think that
Yeah.
when it comes down to them trying to do something for themselves, they don't even know what the fuck to do. So
Yeah, that's exactly what she is. She's so highly educated. She has 2 master's degrees, and yet she just doesn't she can't do anything on her own. She doesn't she can't do anything at all on her own, and it's just how much religion has um brainwashed her into believing that she's not valuable without a man. Um if you ask her about men, she'll go on a diatribe about how evil they are, and then she'll turn around and serve them and be completely subservient to them. And she's just a complete doormat.
yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, I've seen it before too, obviously, and in the South especially. I mean, and a lot of time it's not even like I don't think it's conscious. I can't even say the
Yeah,
word. A lot of times, because even women who aren't necessarily really religious will by default and not realize it be like serve men. They'll sit there and bitch about men, and then they'll do exactly that. And as a guy who, well, his business, I'm a mama's boy. I'll plead guilty to kind of giving into that sometimes because it's just one of those. I mean, the Southern tradition is so much Christian it's kind of tied into the
Right.
Christian thing
Mhm.
that it's hard to tell them apart sometimes. So I
It
mean,
doesn't matter if you want to be um, served by the patriarchy. If you're a guy, and especially in the South, you don't have any choice in it. You're going to be served by the patriarchy. You're going to get privileges that you don't want, and it doesn't matter what you do. You can't get away from those.
yeah, I mean, we could go into the whole. You can do what you can to try to fight it, but in the end, I mean, it's one of those things. Free will or not free will, I don't know. I mean, can you stop something that it's so ingrained as a part of you that you don't even think about it? I mean, I think you can try, but in the end, when you've got a system that's crushing everybody, I mean, obviously women are affected way more than men are, I think.
Right.
But it's still, I mean, it's just one of those things. It's hard to, and of course, everything else going in the South. I mean, anybody who's in the South knows all the fucked up shit that's going on right now with the abortion bans and
Yeah.
KKK
It's
wandering.
just another way to tell us that our bodies do not belong to us.
Yeah, it's just so that's all. That's all it ever is about. And and maybe we should talk about well, we should talk about Christianity, or at least the southern version of Christianity. What we're talking, I guess the evangelical
Right.
uh branchings of it or whatever, because it seems like of course we're Protestants for the most part, but there's also the evangelicals, and I think especially in the South it's pretty much evangelical and kind of this culture that perpetuates these thinkings of women being property. Um,
Right.
so, like you said, I mean, and again, you may have been in a cultish denomination or whatever,
Hmm.
but this isn't. It's not just cult. It's not just like what we call cults or whatever. This is pretty much mainstream Christianity down here, I think.
I mean, when Billy Graham heard that that our great president said grab them by the pussy, he said all of us are sinners, and so he completely disregarded the sexual assault that even our president it obviously did. Um and it's covered up from top to bottom by all religious leaders. Um I mean, how many times do we hear how Christian our president is when he has had so many accusations of sexual assault and even claims it himself?
Even to the point of calling Trump like the most godly president we've ever had, or some bizarre shit like that. I mean, I don't. They love him, and it's
They
more
do.
because he's giving them what they want. You know, I mean, they've been frustrated for a long since Reagan came in. He was supposed to be their fucking wet dream. Well, he kind of disappointed them and shit. And so, but Trump is appointing these Supreme Court justices that are going to try to overturn Roe v. Wade.
Mhm.
He's encouraging these white supremacists to coming out of the woodwork. Less, I mean, they were always there. And if you think otherwise, you got your head in the sand. But
Yeah.
he's just encouraging to be more open, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we had made it where if you did that, you were ostracized from polite society. And now polite society says it's completely okay to be a white supremacist.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is all part and parcel of this whole Christian patriarchy thing. Of course, patriarchy in and of itself is not a good thing, obviously. But I feel like in this country, especially, it is again Christianity has a huge part to play in that patriarchy. And I think patriarchy in general has always been kind of a Christian thing or a religious thing, right? I
I
mean,
think that religion is a manner in which to control the public. And if we have half the population believing that they can't do anything without the other half of the population, we obviously have a better control of the population.
So you're an atheist. Would you consider yourself an anti-theist as well?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay, I figured that was the case. I mean, because as we said, I mean, what happened to you and what's happened to so many others, and of course, lest anybody else claim that I'm, there are of course boys that are abused. There's, but of course the vast majority are women or girls, I should say too. But um, the fact that this can go on and there's lip service I think paid, but if we're talking about rape in general in this country, how it's underreported, how it's men very rarely actually get convicted of anything.
1% of rapists go to jail.
Yeah, I mean, it's why would women ever report anything? And the whole Me Too movement, yeah, okay, maybe it went the other direction. And frankly, okay, so a couple of guys got hurt. And don't get me wrong, of course that's horrible. But compared to the, shit, millions of women who've experienced being raped, assaulted, or whatever, and not being, not having any justice. I mean, I can understand why there might be a little backlash in the other direction, but you know, it. Like I said, the Me Too movement has helped, but I don't think it's going to take more than one movement.
Yeah. So the election or appointment of the latest Supreme Court nominee lowered chances of men believing in rape cases.
Hmm. Huh.
So um, when we don't have half the population that controls all of the population basically believing in what is happening, there's not going to be any change, not any grand change. We have to have men on the front lines helping us, being beside us, and believing us.
And so, yeah, we've kind of dovetailed into that whole idea of men's. I mean, dovetailing from the abuse from church abuse, right? And this plays right into that kind of goes hand in hand with it, with the patriarchy being responsible for that, and then how men themselves, who are also affected by the patriarchy, whether they like to admit it or not, they need to step forth and keep the boys in check. Keep their. That's one of the bigger things I think that we've learned. I think, well, if you're
The
paying attention.
the shutting off of emotions of men is one of the greatest things that harms everyone. I mean, without men being able to express any emotion other than anger, it makes it where they can't express love and empathy and all of the things that we need in this world to make it a better place.
Yeah, and we've seen some examples of guys trying to step up, like Terry Crews,
Yeah, he's
people like
great.
that. Yeah, was trying to step up and really bringing that to the fore. But you see the kind of backlash he gets, and then you understand what the kind of the mountain we have to climb to try to overcome that, because he's considered like a pussy or whatever, or because he dares speak up and shows emotion. I mean, I know I have a difficult time showing emotion, mostly because I can't. It's not like it's weird. It's like I'm inhibited, you know.
You've been told from the time you were an infant that showing emotion is not manly, and the main thing you are supposed to be is manly.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe. Yeah, I mean,
there's no guess about why men can't show emotions. We demonize men showing emotions and tell them that it's feminine to show emotions. And when we undermine the emotional output of men, we do a great disservice not only to men but to women too.
right, because women, who like to be with men or whatever. or have to deal with men on a regular basis suffer from that because they don't get that full range of emotion, and then men suffer because they're missing out on a whole lot because they're missing half their fucking emotional output, basically. I mean,
Yeah.
I know in my case, I've tried to be more emotionally invested in things, but even so, I mean, I still come off as being. It takes a lot to get me to cry unless I'm drinking or something. I mean, it, I have. It's weird for guys, especially. Another thing is, it's a very unhealthy thing because if you can't control when it comes out, it'll come out when you don't want it to, and that's not healthy. I don't. And like if you don't do something, it's like compressed. It'll come out in some random way that you don't expect that you might not necessarily be a good thing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think this kind of ties into why uh, goes back to patriarchy, goes back to Christian patriarchy. Women are treated like objects, property. So, do you this religion that you are in? Do you how much responsibility do you hold for them over what happened to you?
100%, because that's what enabled it to happen in the first place and what made it where there was no outlet in the community to make it where I could seek help. Um, you just were not to say anything about any man doing you any harm because men are the leaders of the society.
Yep, that seems to be the. And it's not even religion necessarily. I think, of course, any institution where men are powerful and where they're pretty much closed off. There's always that risk.
If I was in a larger community or a more northern community that was not consumed by this religion, cult, whatever you want to call it, um, I could have at least sought help outside of the community of the cult and gotten away from it probably a lot younger than I did.
Did you know other people that this happened to?
Um, it was pretty widespread among my peers. I do know that some kids would get raped and they would get suspended from school for it.
They get suspended because they got raped. Okay, that's it's not funny, but it's just so fucking bizarre that you can't believe it's reality. I mean, I don't understand the logic behind that. So are there resources out there? I'm sure there are, but do you know any of you resources out there for people who are recovering from this sort of thing?
Rain is the best one, in my opinion. Um, it's double I Rain, um, and they have a hotline, and they can help you talk about it. Um, they have multiple different hotlines, uh, as well as the National Child Abuse Hotline. Um, and I don't know of any that are purely focused on the Christian aspect of it, um, but there are many resources, and I will send you that link too if you would like to see that.
Did you know about these resources? Well, you're only 3 years old, so it's a stupid question, I guess.
I didn't know about them until I left home because you simply didn't get resources whenever I was in that cult. The only way I left the cult was I got married. Um, I went from the cult into marriage.
Yeah, I've heard that too. A lot of women get married because they just to escape. Uh,
Yep.
the situation or whatever. And that's why I don't ever, judge anybody. And you never should judge anybody on anything, as far as I'm concerned, unless you know their story. And but I'm glad you got out of it. Did you not have when you were in there? Was it kind of like a controlled environment though?
Very controlled. Um, I was pretty much a rebel from the time I was born, though, and my mother couldn't control me. So I told her I was an atheist by the time I was 15. Um, she went to one of my preacher uncles, and they sat me down and told me that I wasn't, and if I was, then I would be kicked out of the home immediately. And so I faked it for a few years, and that now I refuse to even tolerate it. Um, Whenever I go home, they often try to make me do the prayer stuff and that kind of stuff. And my grandmother asked me literally every single time I go home if I eat pork because I'm married to an Arab and she's afraid that I'm going to turn into a Muslim.
Oh my fucking god! That's not
So
a.
it's like a test every time I go home. She puts pork in front of me, which I hate, by the way, but I eat it anyway just to show her that I'm not a Muslim.
I'm surprised you do that. I'd be like, fuck, I hate pork. Fuck you. But I
I'm
mean,
just so sick of being told that I'm not what I am. Like they will not believe that I'm an atheist.
well, to
They
them,
it will not they just will not believe it. But they will believe that because the man of the house was raised as a Muslim, then I must be. And so every single time I go home, they test me with pork.
that's bizarre. What
Yeah.
does that prove anyway, though?
That I'm an infidel, probably.
But
I
you
don't
are an
know.
infidel.
I don't know. My grandmother loves to do this to me, and I don't get the point of it. And I just like I'll just put a little piece of ham in my mouth, just right in front of her, just so that she'll back off of me. And my husband's name is AJ, and he'll do the same just to prove that no, we're not as Muslims. We're just not any religion whatsoever.
And not that that would be a reason for you to do that any fucking way, because like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Seriously, oh god. It's like, well, he's one of the good ones. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
But he's an atheist too. He's not practicing, right?
right.
Yeah. Not that, like I said, not that that would matter. It shouldn't matter anyway. But do they care about that? I mean,
Um, I think they'd actually rather him be a Muslim than to be
I figured. Oh
um
Lord.
they they were really against me because whenever we married, he was still a Muslim. He wasn't practicing and he didn't really believe in any organized religion, but he was still a Muslim until about 5 years ago or so. Um, and a podcast actually helped me finish off deconverting him. Um, and and they were very against me marrying a Muslim. The day after I married him, we pretty much eloped. We got married in a justice of the peace alone, and the next day I got a phone from my grandma, and she was like, "You're not gonna have kids with him, are you?"
15. 15
Yeah,
kids, and I'm bringing them all over there at one time, and they're
yeah.
all going to go Allahu Akbar right for you. Sure am, motherfucker.
So yeah, it was. My family is they're so brainwashed, but they live in such a little place in northern Oklahoma that it's like they don't know any better. So I can't judge them for it. It's just how it affects me that I'm like, "Oh my god, could you just love me regardless of who you think I am?"
Yeah, but what do they think you are? They think you're a fucking infidel who married a Muslim,
Yep.
who isn't a good woman, doesn't do what she's told.
Yep.
And you're right to an extent. I do feel sorry for people like that, and there's especially and again in the South, especially. Well, it's not just the South. In isolated communities like that, they're just so cut off from any sort of like education or anything, and basically their whole lives revolve around the church that they kind of just don't hear anything else. I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
the internet's somewhat, not much though, because I mean, shit, try to get a signal out in some of these places. I
Yeah.
mean, so I mean, it doesn't help. It helps some, and I feel like eventually maybe it'll leak its way, but it's going to take a long time to overcome that if it ever completely goes away. Because these are powerful people. They're charismatic usually. Um, they're good at controlling people, and it's hard to break that even with more information. If you can't get the information, it doesn't do you fucking good anyway. So, and that's why I'm kind of like divided on that whole thing. Like, well, fuck the South and fuck these idiots, fuck these ignorant people. But at the same time, I'm like, well, who are the people who are actually making them or keeping them that way? And
Yeah.
so I'm go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, keep going.
I just say I'm more inclined to blame the people in power, uh, as opposed to like the little people, even though they piss me off.
Yeah, I mean, my mother has 2 master's degrees. There's really no excuse for her to still be part of the cult. Um, she well should have left it. Um, but she's further in it than my grandmother or anyone else, uh, that's still alive in my family. Um, my grandmother, regrets not being able to have the education. She grew up during the Depression and the Dust Bowl and stuff. And Oklahoma got hit, worse than pretty much
Oh
all
yeah.
of the country. So she didn't get the opportunities to be deconverted, but she regrets that. But she's more modern than most, but she's still subservient to men, and yeah,
Yeah, and like I said, I do feel bad a lot of times. I don't feel bad for the people who molest, rape people. I don't feel bad for the people in power because you know
I've
those.
mostly forgiven everyone in the males that were in league with that, because they're just as much a victim of the society as the women are. I mean, they're taught that they own women from the time they're born. So there's unless they do the cognitive dissonance to really question their beliefs, they're just as much part of this of the brainwash as we are.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What can we do as like just people? I mean, it seems like the ultimate cause of this is patriarchy. And I know people are like, "Oh my God, shut up, fucking SJW with your patriarchy bullshit." And to that, I say, "Well, you can kiss my ass." So because I mean, I know you don't want to. I know you think it's a buzzword, and I guess it can, but I guess you can consider that. But I mean, that's what it is. I mean, it's this whole system that's been. I mean, it's been running us for fuck since when? It's been thousands of years. Probably farther back. And you don't see me. I don't see any matriarchal governments really. I mean, there's some tribes that are like that, I think,
Yeah.
but for the most part, they're patriarchal.
Hmm.
And again, that's not something you just get rid of like that.
We have to have men speak against it. I mean, as much as our voices can be heard, it's men's voices that are going to change the minds of other men. And I
But
think that's the only way we can actually change things is if we have men on the front lines saying this is not acceptable behavior, and if you want to be a good man, you don't do this, this, and this.
and admittedly, that's not easy for some people. I don't have friends in real life, so I have like two, and
Hmm.
there's no way in shit they're ever doing that fucking shit in front of me. That's not gonna happen. So
Right.
I don't have like super jockey friend men friends or whatever. But I know there's some guys who do, and that to me that's a little braver. I think if you run with those crowd like that are kind of boorish man types, you know, kind of the stereotypical man type. But
AJ is very much a man's man, and he does a lot of deconverting his friends and being like, "Hey, that's not cool," and it's hard for him, and he gets ostracized from them, and yeah, it's not easy, but it's not easy being the brunt of the society either.
yeah, and let me go ahead and qualify this. I'm not a perfect person. I make mistakes a lot simply because when you're a certain way, and it's not even anything really just like, oh, ho, ho, you know, make fun of, look at her, I'd fuck her, or whatever, stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's, shitty just asides like that. I mean, yeah, I have moment. I need to do better. I have to really concentrate sometimes, mostly because I've been so, I guess, just fucking programmed, and that's something I'm working on. And trust me, Robin ain't gonna let me get away with, that shit anyway. She'll
Yeah.
punch me in the face. But overall, I do try to do that, and I do, of course, online. Facebook's my social media, basically. So I definitely try to do that on there. But I think it's Facebook is it's social media. I mean, in real life, is that's when you gotta kind of step things up. I think, and especially here in the South, I think it's more pronounced because of the patriarchy being a little more ramped up because of religion, this
Yep.
extreme religion. So
It excuses a lot of the injustices done by the patriarchy, religion.
yeah, and religion. I'm sorry. Now that's obviously I'm an atheist. I don't usually make a huge deal of it like I used to. Right? I used to be like just atheist all the time, every day. Jesus memes, haha, funny, stupid religious memes.
Hmm.
And but I mean, I know some points. Well, social justice stuff seems to be more kind of my thing, humanism, I guess. But when it comes to stuff like this is one thing. And again, I have to qualify this with saying that there are religious people who are good people, who are humanists, who help.
Hmm.
But as far as the institution itself, I'm not a fan. I mean, you can say what you want, and yeah, is it just because it's religion, or is it because it's just a bad ideology? It doesn't matter. It still kills people. It still hurts people.
Yeah.
Whatever you call it. I mean, religion. The studies say we're prone to it. Maybe. So I mean, you're never going to get rid of it. So those who say that need to calm down a little bit, and let's try to. What you do is try to get rid of give people the information, and people who don't want to be religious from that information. Okay, great, but the ones who maybe want to stay in don't be more enlightened. Make their religions more enlightened and make them more humanist.
There's a huge movement of churches, and even in Texas, which is so backwards most of the time, of the leftist church trying to pull people into being better people and not being racist and not being sexist. And there are good Christians and there are good people in the religion, but the religion itself is overall harmful. It needs to go.
Yeah, I don't I don't know what you call it. I don't know what religion or not. I don't care what it's called. I don't care. I care about the results. And if
Mhm.
you have results that happen to you, or women, or just women, men who are brainwashed and thinking it's cool to treat women like property, anything like that, I think it needs to be decimated. It needs to be gotten rid of, regardless of what you call it. I mean, cults can be secular in nature. There can be secular cults, not just religious cults. I mean, so I mean, like fucking Kim Jong Un, he's practically his own religion, right? That's a fucking cult of personality. Of
Yep.
course, they keep him hungry and ignorant to keep it that way. So, but yeah, I'm for the. I guess so. The patriarchy, fuck the patriarchy. Let's get rid of the patriarchy, right?
Hmm.
And then their next goal is to get rid of harmful institutions that keep people down.
Right.
Not just religion necessarily, but also
Any amount of tribalism at its core is harmful.
yeah. But that's one of those things that just humans are like that. I don't think you're really going to ever get rid of that completely. The best you can do is alleviate it.
Yeah.
Uh, it's results or whatever. I mean, just like religion's probably not ever going to completely go away, but the best you can do is alleviate these things. Of course, I'm a nihilist. Well, not nihilist. I'm a skeptic. I'm not a skeptic either. That's a horrible. Ugh, anybody who calls I'm a skeptic, okay, dude, calm down. I need you
It
to.
just makes me think of Jordan Peterson as soon as I hear skeptic.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I try to avoid that word. But a cynic, that's the word I was going for. I'm one of those people who thinks the species will probably be dead within the next 100 years, and it wouldn't be a bad thing. So I mean, unless we can just turn things around quickly, I'm not seeing a good outcome. I'm
Yeah.
not. But that's
Yeah.
just me. I mean, I just think there's too many fucking things wrong with our species as it is. We got too much power. We got fucking huge weapons. We can kill millions of people off in one go. I mean, it's scary stuff, man.
It is.
I want the flying cars. I was promised flying cars. I still don't have the
Well,
flying cars.
once it's flying, isn't it just an airplane?
I don't understand that. Yeah, I don't understand that. Why would you want? And who the fuck? I'm going to give license to flying vehicles? No. What? Hell no.
I
I don't
don't
want
trust the people on the road, leave alone in the sky.
Yeah, the road is two-dimensional, right? You add in a third dimension, fuck, you just no, forget that shit. Fucking roaches. Um, so I don't know, man. I guess we can only do what we can do, and I don't like when people use that as an excuse not to. Well, we're all going to be dead soon anyway, so let's just act like assholes. Okay, that's easy for your privileged ass to say. I
Yeah.
mean, privilege needs to be used positively if you have it, and then I think one of those things should be um, to help people who are less privileged than you are, or it
Yeah,
should be.
I agree with you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Ree. I know it's kind of a difficult subject, and it's something that's not easy to talk about. But I really appreciate and I admire you for coming on and talking about it to me.
I really appreciate that, and I think it needs to be talked about because we need to put a stop to that. If nothing else about religion, we need to put a stop to. We need to put a stop to the injustices of harming children with it.
Is there anything else you want to kind of a parting summary or something you'd like to say to people before you?
Um, I can't really think of anything, but there's so many resources, and I gave Chris a couple of links. So if you go to his Facebook, I bet they'll be there. I don't know where you post your links and stuff, but
It'll be on the site, the blog post. When I post the show, I'll put the links up on there at
okay.
the website.
And there's help there if you have a story like mine.
I mean, obviously, I have never taken advantage. I'm not a victim, but I mean, I would say that if anybody has taken advantage of those resources to help other people who need those resources, you can contact me or anybody. I mean, if they need help and they need resources, give them the information. I'm always glad to do that. Anybody who asks. So. All right,
Okay.
Bree. Well, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
You too.